So Dave, I heard that you started off in the pool industry on the service side.
Yes, I did. I think it was probably 1980, if I remember right. I started with Paddock Pools in Oklahoma City. I worked for John Paddock, who was the son of Pascal P. Paddock, who had started all the franchises way before my time and way before your time.
Well, everyone in the industry knows Paddock, even me.
Right. It's a well-known name in the pool industry. It went a lot of directions. And yeah, I started, my first day on the job was some guys took me in a pickup and drove me up to, I think it was Edmond, Oklahoma. And it was right out of winter, and it was time to start opening pools. And they dropped me off. They took me to a pool that was empty and full of winter muck and mess.
No cover, I'm assuming.
No
We
cover,
don't have a
no
whole lot of
cover
covers
on
in
this
Oklahoma.
pool. And said, we'll be back in about 3 or 4 hours, have this all cleaned up. We're going to acid wash it tomorrow. And I looked at him and said, what? Acid wash? What? So that was my indoctrination into that end of the business.
I mean, that is an indoctrination. Did you get the pool clean by yourself? Or did you have
as best I remember, that was a long time ago. It may have taken a couple of times, but yes.
So how do you go from being, starting in the pool service industry, cleaning out a disgusting pool, to being where you're at now at Heritage?
You got to start at the bottom in any business, really, if you really want to learn it. And at that time, literally, I was a lot younger, obviously 40 years ago. There's such a value in saying, look, I've been there, I've done that. And then obviously from cleaning pools, mucky pools, to replacing pumps and filters and changing out pump seals and cleaning DE grids and all those things, you just kind of kept working up at Paddock. It was really invaluable for me because Paddock at that time was a commercial pool builder. They didn't do residential pools. They did like country club pools, city pools, big pools. I wouldn't say, people always say, oh, it's an Olympic-sized pool, but Olympic pools are really big, but country club pools, city pools, we all see those all over the place. So we graduated up, or I graduated up, I guess, at each of those levels, and plumbed and poured and did all those things on the commercial pool side.
So how did you end up on the distribution side of the industry?
An independent manufacturer's rep that used to call on me at Paddock Pools. At my last job at Paddock Pools, I was running the service department, the remodel department, and a retail store they had. And the independent rep named Jim Duhamel, a lot of people will remember that name from this area, approached me about, hey, you ever thought about doing something different? And of course, Paddock was a family-held business, and it was time for me to probably start getting a little more serious about a career. So I went to work for Jim Duhamel in South Texas and Louisiana. I covered that territory. He was the Polaris rep at the time, among other things, but Polaris was his big line. And that's where I met Frank St. Romain, who was the founder of what is now Pool Corp, but it was called South Central Pool Supply.
Sure. Another legendary name in the industry.
Yeah, very much. He was my mentor, and just such a great guy. Talk about culture, he was like the big brother. I always say he took a bunch of us cowboys and made us businessmen. Mm-hmm. And it was really the launch of me. He asked me at one time, because we had such a good relationship as a rep selling to a distributor, and he tried to hire me. He goes, well, you ever thought about being in distribution? I said, maybe someday. And he says, well, I got a place for you in Jackson, Mississippi. And I said, no, thank you.
That was the right response.
Don't really want to go to Jackson, but I did, and I to this day I remember saying it. I said, but if you ever want to open in Dallas, Texas, I'm your guy, because I always wanted to live in Dallas. I was a kid growing up in Oklahoma, and Dallas was
it's
larger
the big city
than
for
life.
us up in Oklahoma.
Yeah, right, that's right. So that's how I got started. And I started with Frank. I opened Dallas, And at the time we opened the branch in Dallas, we were competing with 7 other distributors at the time.
Wow.
And this was back in 1988. Then I started opening branches in Fort Worth and Austin and Albuquerque. I started opening branches kind of in the Southwest and Midwest. Frank concentrated on opening businesses kind of in the Southeast. So that's initially how we grew what is now Pool Corp at the start.
Well, and you had a long career at Pool Corp, but that's not where you're at anymore. Now you're at Heritage.
Right. Interesting story again, I guess. But I worked for Pool Corp almost 33 years, and then I retired. Guess my last year working was 2020. Was my last year, and then I took a year. I retired, and I was retired for over a year, and enjoying life.
You didn't like playing golf and hanging out.
I'm not a golfer, but I had plenty of other things going on. It was a retired life, and the only social media that I've probably ever been on is LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn profile said retired Pool Corp, and that was really about all it said. I get a message from Dan Tinker, and he says in his message to me, I've never met him. I'd heard about SRS. I'd heard about, Heritage, and they're buying these people. A lot of my friends in the industry would call me and say, hey, what do you think about these guys? And I go, I'm retired. I don't know what to think about them. But so typical Dan Tinker, he said, many, many people have said I should get to know you. I want to buy you a beer. And just out of curiosity, we met, and I'll shorten this story now, but he asked me if I ever thought about getting in the pool business. I said, no, never thought it, never gave it a second thought. And he didn't give up. And then I talked to Mac McDermott and Ryan Nelson, the CFO. They put the hard sell on me. But I tell you what really made me want to come out of retirement is it's such a employee-focused culture. It reminded me so much of the early days of South Central Pool Supply and everything. Everyone wants to succeed. Everybody wants to grow. There's a lot of great, talented young people in this company. And we tease that when I joined the company, I raised the average age about a year and a half. We really came to an agreement that I said, I would love to be part of it and love to try to help you get organized and really grow this thing into something special.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like they sort of had a lot of that, drive and focus and energy to get Heritage going, to get it started. But what they really needed was someone who could say, here's how the pool industry works. Here's how we do things. They needed that kind of wisdom that you had from working in the industry.
That's a great point, because SRS and Heritage Landscape are excellent distributors. As far as the fundamentals of distributors, and then, as you know, the biggest part of SRS is roofing.
Right.
And they've been in that, I think, 15 years. And Landscape only 4 years, but they are dominant in that, and they're number 2 in roofing to a big, large roofing company. They're number 2 in landscape in 4 years. And all the acquisitions in pool, we're number 2 in pool.
I was just going to say, what's your pool ranking now?
Yeah, so we're number 2 in pool, and but I think they realize that there are a lot of nuances in the pool industry versus shingles and building materials, and landscape and pool are a little more similar, because I worked when I was at Pool Corp, I worked a little bit on the Horizon side, which they have a landscape division too. So there's some similarities there, but it's still, every silo has its uniqueness.
Yeah. So you've stuck around. So did they hold up the end of their bargain about keeping you interested and being about the people and all of that? Did they lived up to the sales pitch?
I'm having a blast. Honestly, it's like I said, it reminds me a little bit about the past, but the last thing I tell all these guys, I say, I don't want to build Pool Corp 2. I want to make Heritage the best pool distributor they can be. And I think bringing just knowledge, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my career and saw a lot of mistakes and people have made, and other distributors and Pool Corp even they made mistakes too. But a lot of good things happen there. That Pool Corp's a great story, as the whole industry knows. I got to tell you, when you see the look on, and I say the whole culture, everybody walks around pretty much with a smile on their face. There's no politics. It's like, hey, how can I help you succeed? Hey, can you help me? Remove objections, bring some things to the forefront that you haven't had to think about in roofing or landscape, but this is how it's kind of done in the pool business.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it on your face. Like
I love it.
I mean, you can tell. You can tell you feel it. You've drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. I guess I'm drowning in Kool-Aid right now, I think so.